The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, a.k.a. the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Welcome everybody to Exit Team Nashua. My name's Jessie and I will be your host this evening. Tonight in the studio we have the lovely Tori. Thanks for coming, Tori.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad that you could be here. So I'm really excited to hear your story and learn about you and and your recovery story and your journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like where you're from, where you grew up and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow.
I lived in the same zip code for like almost my entire life until I got married, but that's later. I was born into an alcoholic and addict family. My dad was a raging alcoholic for my entire childhood. I never really knew like where he would go or how long he'd be gone, or if he'd come back. I have very distinct memories of like when I was a kid, my abuela, my grandma, would call and would talk to my sister and I, and we're just little in the backseat of a car and telling us that like my dad's not going to come home, he's going to go to Mexico with her. Yeah.
Your grandmother?
Yeah, my dad's mom.
Okay.
Because he would go, she enabled him a lot.
Okay.
So he would go run over there and he would like call us from there and tell us that he wasn't coming home. So he was also very emotionally abusive to my mom. He never really took anything out on my sister and I. He like would raise his voice and yell sometimes, but it was always directed to my mom. It was very unstable. Every like car ride that we had, almost every single one, it would always end up in them fighting. Like my mom couldn't even look outside of the window and my dad would think that she was checking out another guy, and then it would start off this whole thing, like just bad. And ever since I can remember, I was the one trying to defend my mom. I feel like I started to develop that like fighter spirit very young because my sister would be in the backseat crying. My mom would be yelling at him to stop. And like, I didn't, there's nothing else I can do but try and yell back at him because I think that that's going to be effective.
Right.
When I was 8 or 9, it's really hard for me to know exactly what age because I have a lot of my childhood that's also kind of blocked out. But when I was 8 or 9, my uncle molested me. And then my half-brother and my cousin also after that. That was all before I took my first drink or anything like that. And to this day, like I still have a really hard time accepting that I'm a victim in that case, if that makes sense.
Okay. So like it was your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have done a lot of bad things and I'm really good at playing the victim, but in those certain circumstances, like I take the blame because like I think I deserve it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So did you tell anybody when it happened?
No. I didn't tell anybody for a long time. It wasn't until I was like 14 that I told my mom about my uncle. I never told her about my half-brother or my cousin. She just found that out like a couple months ago actually because we were in an argument because she doesn't really accept me for who I am. And so I took my first drink when I was 13. It was a buttery nipple, which it's not like I love talking about my first drink, but I think it's really funny that it was a buttery nipple because not a lot of people like hear that.
What exactly is
it's
that?
I
Sounds like
believe it's
sweet.
like Kahlua and like Irish Baileys or something like that. I know it has like liqueur and schnapps in it or something. I have no idea. My uncle was a bartender
Uh-huh.
for a long time, and he was a very good alcoholic, so he knew how to make a good drink.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was some family occasion. I forget if it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, but you know, everyone's drinking, and I'm like, Mom, can I have a drink? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, you can have one. You can try it. So
How
I
old
did.
were you?
13.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm in the comfort of my own home. Like, we're a family of alcoholics. Like, it's okay to drink, right? Like, she doesn't think that I'm gonna end up where I am today.
Right.
And so I remember I took that drink and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is why everyone's drinking. Like,
Right.
I feel free.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought that there was something wrong with me, that I was different, that no one really truly loved me. You know, that everyone would always leave me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't have to think about those things.
Right.
And
Made you forget.
Yeah.
Made you forget about those feelings.
It did. I was
Yeah.
just focused on having a good time at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that night I kept begging my uncle to make me more and more and more. Like, that allergy that we have, like, is very real. Because as soon as that first drink that I've ever had touched my lips, I was ready to go.
Yeah. Wanting more and more and more.
Yeah. And so I asked him for more, and he was getting more drunk as the night went on, so it was easier to ask for more drinks, and he would like hide them in the cupboard from my mom, so my mom didn't even know that I was drinking more. I was also 13 when like I smoked for the first time.
Smoke cigarettes or weed?
Weed.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what I was doing. It was like out of a bong,
Mm-hmm.
but that was also like a freeing moment. Just any external solution that I could get my hands on.
Any substance take you out of yourself.
Oh yeah. And like, it was even, you know, I talk about this a lot in my stories, like men were as much of my problem as drugs and alcohol were. 13 was also the age that I gave away my virginity. Like, it was the first time that I felt empowered because it had been taken from me in different ways since I was a child.
Right.
That like when I was 13 and I gave it away, it was something that I could use as a weapon.
Right.
Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. It gave you power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, like a good addict and alcoholic, I like to be in control of things. So like, it made me feel in control.
Yeah.
When I was 15, I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was with my now ex-husband, but we had just been together for I think maybe 3 months. Found out we were pregnant.
Wow.
Had my first at 16. I had turned 16 pregnant. And life was really hard. I'm very grateful for my family and my mom, my dad, my sister. They were, you know, my mom likes to be in control, so like she was supportive of my life because she wanted to like take care of my son. And so like I had a place to live and I had people to watch him, but like it did not make life like any easier. I was going to school full time. I was working full time. I had to give, you know, like Justin and I had to like spend money on groceries for the whole household, and like we never left. The only reason why we left is because he joined the Coast Guard and decided that we would get married so that I could leave with him, with Jacob. We would all be taken care of, and like that's how we got out of the house. My mom and I's relationship was very toxic. I felt like once I turned 18, I like felt like I had lost so much freedom. Like I didn't have high school parties that I was invited to because I was pregnant like half of my junior year.
Right.
So I started going out with my best friend, and like the more freedom that I got, like the more I took. I could not get enough of being able to go out and not have to worry about anything and, you know, get drunk or do whatever. And it got really bad. You know, Justin and I ended up getting pregnant again. And I started going home more, you know, with the babies and handing them off to my mom. And like, I would go up for the weekend and barely spend the weekend with them because all I wanted was a babysitter.
Right.
And then Justin went to A school, which is, he's like going into his rate. It's kind of like going to college in the military. He's getting, you know, training for what he actually wants to do. And then we got shipped off to Kodiak, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which was crazy because his first duty station was only 4 hours away from my family. So it was super easy for me to drop the kids off on the weekend and like do what I wanted to do.
I mean, 4 hours isn't super easy, but
Well,
it's doable.
I mean, being from Texas, like 4 hours is like nothing to me.
Right.
It was well worth the drive what I was like getting into, like the shenanigans.
Right.
But now I'm like 4,000 miles away from my family.
Yeah.
I'm in a new place. I have a 6-month-old baby and a 4-year-old. Like,
wow.
I feel alone, and I start to try and fill this like emptiness that I have inside me that's never really gone away.
Yeah.
With trying to be like a perfect coastie spouse. There's like a stigma, and I'm not 100% sure of what it is in every other branch, but like coastie wives is definitely like a thing. And so I tried to fill that role. I tried to like impress other women and have them be my friends with like them thinking that I'm cool, or like mimosas for brunch, stuff like that.
Right, like I have the house and the husband and the kids and things are good.
Yeah.
And it's all fake.
Yes.
Right.
Because that's not who I am. Like that's just not, I'm not a show pony. But I wanted to be, so I could have people to, like, I inevitably wanted that love.
You wanted to belong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I started to find friends in Kodiak that would go out with me. And like, then that's just where things went really south. The first time we went home to Texas for vacation, that's when I got into like uppers and like party drugs and all kinds of crazy stuff, because Justin was like with the kids at home, and then I went off with my best friend who lived in Texas at the time, and literally spent like nights and all day and all night in like a closet, just doing crazy stuff. And like that was, you know, like I had a ride moment with like alcohol and weed and everything like that. But when it came to like party drugs, like Molly, ecstasy, cocaine, and all that stuff, like that's where I was like, this is it. And ever since then, like when we went home, I would try and find it wherever I could, but I'm not from Kodiak, so I had no idea where to get it, and like I'm not about to ask a coastie.
Right.
So I just, you know, the more and more I went out, the more I felt my way around there, and then I met this guy. He was an owner of a bar. He was handsome and charming, and I fell in love. And I told Justin I wanted a divorce, and I was like, I'm in love with this guy. I'm gonna marry him. And for the next year, I didn't stop drinking or stop using, but like my number one addiction had become him. He was emotionally abusive. It had gotten physically abusive. And I spent every last fiber I had of myself on him. It wasn't until like I was actually scared for my life that I had reached out for help. And then we started going to court. And that's where like my addiction had really, really just like swept the rug from under me. I couldn't hold a job while going to court. Like I couldn't make it to work. I could barely make it to court and like sit there and listen to the lawyers arguing.
So you're in a custody battle.
No, this was with Randy. So this was a restraining order that I was seeking.
Okay.
Because like.
So this is the new guy.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's crazy because the last night that Randy put his hands on me, I had spent all day at the police station in the hospital. And then the next night, like I went out and I told myself I'm not going to drink. I was like, I just need to be out of the house. Like I can't be in the apartment. Because at this point I had moved out, I had gotten my own place. While Justin was still on base with the kids, like we would go back and forth. Like I was really serious about trying to be with Randy. So the next night after that happened, I basically went into someone's house uninvited. It's another guy that I had been seeing, because again, like that's my addiction too.
Right. Yeah.
Caused a huge ruckus. Cars ended up getting really messed up, like my car, his car. And it was this huge thing. So no charges were able to like be pressed against Randy because of that night that I like went out and got shit-faced and found my hairdresser / drug dealer and started getting all wild and crazy and I wanted to like take back some control that I thought I had lost the night before. And I just did something really stupid, and it really affected the whole case because it made me look like irreparable. So a domestic violence restraining order was the only thing that I could really get. So that's why we were going to court. And it dragged on for like 6 or 7 months. After I finally won, like, then I really didn't have to worry about going to court. Like, I didn't have to worry about anything at all. So I didn't care if I stayed out all night. I didn't care if I showed up for work. I didn't care if I like didn't show up for anything, regardless if it was for my kids, appointments like for Justin, my ex-husband, anything. I was very careless with my life at that point. There were a few moments where I had driven drunk and like I've had hit and runs. I've blacked out while driving and ended up. And so Kodiak's an island, and you can literally, there's like a 2-way road system. You can go to this end of the island or this end of the island, and then like there's this little road that goes to like the other end of the island. And so I found myself blacked out, and I woke up on one end of the island that I had been driving from, like the city, which is a good 30, 45 minutes.
Wow.
And I'm still driving, and like that wasn't even enough for me. So I just hit a very emotional rock bottom. Like I had moved back in with Justin. He wanted to make things work, and you know, I said I did too. And at the time, I meant it. I couldn't stop what I was doing, and I could not put myself in it. So I reached out for help to a couple of my girlfriends that I've known at that point for a few years. And my friend Ashley, who lives here in New Hampshire, she lives in Mason, she researched recovery centers and found Avenues, which is where I went. And I remember I kept pushing it out and pushing it out. Halloween was coming up. I was like, I can't be sober on Halloween. Are you kidding me?
Right.
So she finally had someone purchase a plane ticket for me and told me, like, if you don't get your ass on that plane, like, we're leaving. Like, I'm going to come get you, and I'm dragging you by your hair onto that flight. So she was, you know, talking to Justin, my ex-husband, a lot. And he, like, got me up in the morning because, like, I had stayed up all night. I had gone out again. And I got on the plane, and it took over a day to get here, but I got here. I didn't have any money. I was scared out of my mind. Like, I just tried to sleep on the flights because I was so tired. I couldn't sleep beforehand. And I went to Green Mountain Detox, but I wasn't having DTs from withdrawals. I just haven't slept in a few days. So they told me that I was good to go to treatment, that they didn't really need to detox me for anything.
Right.
That I just needed rest. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, I feel crazy, but like,
right.
it's fine. And yeah, and I went into treatment. I had no idea what like treatment was.
Right.
You know, I come from a family of alcoholics, and I've never heard any one of them once say, I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
There's no AA, there's no like recovery. We're all just like living our lives in
like
the
it's
same
normal.
generational trauma pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, I went to one AA meeting when I was in Kodiak. Someone from my work when I worked at a clinic tried to get me to go. And it was a bunch of like older ladies and me. And they were talking about like wine, and like at that point I had gotten so far into drugs. I was like, I don't know why I'm here.
Right. Right.
But that was like the only exposure I had to AA. So like
Right.
when I come here, I have no idea if it's going to work. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't know there were 12 steps or that I had to surrender to a higher power. Like I knew none of that. I just knew that I hated myself
Mm-hmm.
and I did not want to live the way I was living anymore. And I wanted to be there for my kids
Mm-hmm.
because I had realized like all of my life I promised myself I wouldn't become my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and like I was
Right.
my dad.
Right.
And
So you that was last November, right?
yes, that
So-
was 11/5/19 is my sobriety date. Yeah.
So after Halloween, you got on the plane and
Yeah.
you went, and that was the last time that you used substances.
Yeah.
Wow,
I've been 100%
so that was your
sober.
first attempt at recovery.
This is my first attempt at recovery.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people that haven't had a relapse, you know. So that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, like you said, you went to Avenues and you learned about AA, and that's been your pathway.
Yeah.
Okay.
AA has been my pathway. I'm still on my 4th step. I sat on it for the longest time. But I've been really getting into it lately because I'm tired of sitting on it.
Mm.
Like I want to get it done,
Mhm.
you know? It took me quite a while to accept God into my life because I was so mad
Mhm.
at God for like, why me? Why do I have to be the addict? Why does Justin get to stay home with the kids? Like,
Right.
why do I have to travel across the country to get sober? Like, why,
Mhm.
why? All the why questions that I have no business asking.
Mhm.
But I did. Like, I finally was like, you know what? No, I need to do this.
Mhm.
And so I got a sponsor. I got a home group. Like, I started going to more and more meetings.
Mhm.
And I found like laughter. That was, I think, the thing that really changed my mind when I first got here
Mhm.
was laughing and like enjoying life like genuinely with other people who are trying to do the same thing that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, how can I have fun? How can I
Right.
without all those things?
Right. So do you think that happened when you were in treatment or at sober living?
It was
or-
when I was in treatment.
Yeah.
My first like genuine belly laugh was at PMG.
Oh God.
Yeah. In the church hall.
Yeah.
So that that big long bench
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
there.
Yep.
And so when you move on it, it creaks really
Yep.
loud and it feels like you're gonna break it. And like I literally almost peed myself because I thought that we broke the bench.
You know what's really funny is that my recovery story, it wasn't Avenues then, it was Raw back then. But that's where my recovery story started. And that bench at PMG was in my early days as well. So that's
great.
funny. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That bench is very memorable for its squeaking, for its like squeaks and stuff.
Yeah. So you had a good laugh at
I did.
PMG.
And I was like, I don't have to be miserable.
Right.
It took me a long time to like surrender to not getting into relationships.
Yes.
That's
So the one we're like, I'll do it all, but I'm going to do relationships and have this my way.
Oh yeah, I had a rehab boyfriend, like everything. It was bad. Like, and I didn't realize how much that like plays into
Keeps us sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My disease. I'm on my 4th sponsor.
Okay.
Which is not a terrible thing.
No.
You know, I've just every single sponsor I've had along the way has helped me in, their own unique ways.
Right.
And like right now I feel like I am in need of her. So I don't know. I love her very much and she's helped me a lot, over the last few weeks. I just got her in December. But this is actually the first sponsor that I've been 100% honest with. And have been in constant contact with every single day since I've had her.
Wow.
There may be a day or two in between there that like things get crazy that I haven't.
Yeah.
But I use her to my advantage because like I understand now and accept that if I don't do what I need to do, if I don't reach out to her, if I don't tell her what's going on and be honest, like it only hurts me.
Right.
And in December, I was just in a really dark place. And, I was tired of working where I was working and, like relationships with friends were not that great. And so I reached out to like someone I knew who's out and I almost went out. Like I was
Mhm.
literally just a few decisions and actions away from that.
Wow.
And instead of saying like, screw it and leaving, I called my sponsor and she told me, she said, I don't think you realize how close you are to actually like going out and dying.
Right.
And I needed that because this is my first time, and this is all a learning thing for me, just like
Right.
it is everybody
Right.
else. But I didn't realize how important like going to meetings and doing my step work and praying. I didn't realize how important those things were.
Right.
Because I hadn't even realized that I had fallen off that hard until like it was already happening.
Right.
Which was really scary.
Yeah, that is scary. So, you have a new job.
Yes,
Yeah.
I work at Blueprint now.
So, and congratulations.
Thank you.
What's your position?
I'm the intake coordinator there.
Okay. So, do you do intakes or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do intakes and stuff like that. I do whatever like clinical work I need to help with. I've gone to the houses and like been around the clients, which is fun.
Yeah.
I actually I was at one of the houses and I was on my way home and I started bawling on my way home because I had just got done like playing hacky sack with them and like tossing around the football. And the last time I did those things was like when I was in rehab.
Yeah.
And like I get to work at a place where I get to do that and like connect to the clients and like talk about recovery. And then I get to go home and like tell my sponsor and like the women in my house about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and you're still living in sober living.
I am.
Yep. And that's a big part of what keeps you sober.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like for myself right now having my own apartment. Like I adore the women that are in my house and we keep each other afloat. Like I look forward to my weekly house meetings because we all just get to sit there and talk and catch up like if we haven't already during the week and then hear feedback from each other.
Right. Right.
Because we all genuinely love each other. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful story. I'm so proud of you, and it's great to have you and get to know you better. And we're kind of coworkers now.
Yeah,
so that's exciting. I remember
sister
they
coworkers.
they were saying, "Oh, Blueprint's got a new intake coordinator," because says, of course, the people that do admissions that. They're overwhelmed at Bonfire. So they're so lucky they get an intake coordinator. And I didn't know it was you. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll see each other around.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for watching. And we will see you next time. Have a great evening.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.